Recap. When last we left our heroes, they were following the intrepid trail of some young kobolds. They had gone through caves and caverns and tubes until at last they came to the Cyclopean ruins of an ancient dragonborn temple. Unable to make out exactly all the little nuances of each piece of architecture or the cuneiform that dotted along the walls, they went ahead, following the ever-beckoning call of the young kobolds who seemed eager to lay presents and treasures before their leader, Big Daddy. A series of portals later, they come upon what it can only be described as a tomb. Inside this cramped, tight space is a sarcophagus, its lid laid bare. The entire party is just hemmed in along a little 1.5-foot space between these walls and this giant stone crypt. Inside, laid among all the jewels and magic items, was the bound body of an ancient dragonborn noble. The elaborate and intricately carved mask, forming an eerie doll's-like face with a hinged jaw. All the kobolds seemed very excited and had asked Max Kashak, "Do you know the words? Can you say the words? Can you carry the magic? We will be vessels for this magic." Max Kashak was certainly not on board with the idea of being a vessel for magic any more than he already was. Magic was a tool. Magic was something that you collected. Magic was something that made you clever. It wasn't something you submitted to so much as made an arrangement with. That being said, the young kobolds took his middling stance as acceptance, for they knew that one of their own blood, one so powerful, being on their side, would help them raise Big Daddy. Unbeknownst to all of this, the other members of the party now crowded around the tomb saw on the wall a cuneiform plaque with the symbol of a dragonborn claw, 3 fingers, with an eye in the center. Below this were written words in an ancient song. When translated by Kashak, it was clear that this song itself had survived through the ages, the thousands of millennia, and ended up as a new form of ballad, one that was thought to be, if not contemporary, at least historically recent. The Court of the Crimson King. In an elaborate and melodious performance, Kestrel the Bard, recognizing the tune and the slightly different arrangement of words, began singing. As the words began pouring out, the kobolds joined in. They're harmonizing, causing their mouths and eyes to glow from some kind of strange inner light, as though there was something deep inside them that was now pulsing out LED levels of illumination. The shadows that clamped the walls were eerier and eerier. More eerie still, more terrifying, was the vibrating and the glowing of the gems, arranged artfully on all the raiment on the mummy's body. In that moment of extreme, complete magical ecstasy, the kobolds that have been referred to as the Bone Daddies, ones that have been covered in chalk or some kind of white pigment with coal black around their eyes and on their hands, their leader, the larger of the one, probably the one nearest to the age of ascension, the age of acknowledgement, grasped an ornate dagger with a strange serrated obsidian blade and committed grisly suicide right over the mummy. Despite the magic and the attempts of our druid, Pia, it seemed only to encourage and further fuel the spell, as all the lineaments and wrappings came pulling up, grabbing a hold of the entrails, pulling out the blood and the ichor that seemed to have been from inside this kobold, drawing in the gasping carcass and incorporating it into the mummy. Now, instead of a husk covered in gems, there was a bulging, rippling, writhing monstrosity, a reincarnation of some ancient evil. Wasting no time at all, Pia saw there was only one action that could be taken. In her rage, in her incitement, she dove into the sarcophagus, pinning the mummy. Max, equally quickly seeing the desperation of their situation, called upon the god's power that he'd invested in to try and rebuke this undead. It worked. And in doing so, and putting the mummy on the back foot, so to speak, Kestrel was snapped out of her trance and realized she too needed to hold back this evil. Otherwise, they would all be consumed by it. Together, the heroes worked as best they could, with Pia struggling on top, ripping and shredding in the form of a bear, enraged with her barbarian skills, while Kestrel did her best to diminish the power of the magic around them that she had incited. And Max barely holding back the power of the undead. In an explosive fit of rage, Pia rent the center of the mummy and destroyed the carcass and the original body inside, like jerky being stripped off of an old cow skeleton. Once the magic had been destroyed, the wrappings shredded, light began to return back to this deep cavern. All of the kobolds had been rendered unconscious thanks to a well-timed sleep spell by Kestrel. In the end, both Kestrel and Pia bear the scars of having dealt with something so horrific. Their skin, where they struck the monster, feeling patchy, almost paper-like, hair having fallen out. An age has seemed to have set upon them. They're not out of the woods yet, but at the very least, this member of the Crimson King's court will not rise today. Thanks for playing, guys.